I sit by the window every evening, watching the pale gold of sunset fade behind the crooked trees that stand like silent witnesses to all that time has taken from me. And I wonder if life ever meant to be kind or if I just learned to smile through its cruelty. My name is Evelyn Grace Holloway, 82 years old, bones like paper, heart like glass, and yet inside me still lives that 16-year-old girl, who once ran barefoot through the meadows of North Carolina, hair tangled with wind, cheeks flushed with laughter, believing the world was hers to love. Our house was small and smelled of cornbread and lilacs, with a porch that creaked under my father's boots and a roof that leaked whenever the rain came too hard. But it was home. And in that humble place I learned what warmth felt like. The kind that comes not from fire, but from people. My mother would hum hymns while stirring the pot of beans. My father would tell stories about the old days, and my brother, Henry, would chase me around the fields until we both collapsed, breathless and happy, under the wide blue sky. But happiness has a cruel way of slipping away quietly, like water through open fingers. The war came, and with it went Henry, his laughter replaced by silence that no hymn could fill. My father's eyes grew dim after that. He stopped telling stories, stopped humming, stopped believing the world was good. Mama kept her faith, but her hands trembled every time the postman came down the dirt road, afraid of what letter he might bring. I remember the day it happened. She read the telegram once, twice, 3 times, her lips moving soundlessly, and then she sat down on the floor, clutching the paper as if holding it tighter could make it untrue. Henry was gone, and with him went the last bit of light in my father's eyes. I was 16, standing in the doorway, unable to cry, unable to breathe. That night, I ran to the old willow tree by the river. And that's where Samuel Hayes found me. The boy with the sunlit hair and the crooked smile. He said nothing, just sat beside me until my sobs softened, and when he finally spoke, his voice was quiet and steady, promising me that everything broken could someday be mended. That was the first time he held my hand. And from that day on, the world seemed bearable again. We spent the next few years growing up together. Though in truth, we were just 2 souls trying to heal in a world that kept bleeding. He would carve our initials into the bark of that willow tree, whispering about the future we'd build. A little white house by the river, 2 children, a garden full of roses, and a life filled with laughter that could drown out sorrow. But dreams, I would later learn, are fragile things. When the next war came, Samuel enlisted, wearing his father's old jacket, and tucking a photograph of me into the pocket over his heart. "I'll come back," he promised, his hand brushing against my cheek. "Because my story doesn't end without you." I waited by that willow every evening, tracing the letters we'd carved together, praying to every star that his voice would find its way home. But months turned into years, and the letters stopped coming. Rumors spread about his battalion being lost, and though my mother begged me to move on, I couldn't. I would sit on the porch long after midnight, listening to the wind, imagining it carried his laughter back to me. One autumn evening, I received a small box wrapped in worn brown paper. Inside was the photograph I'd given him, edges burned, corners torn, and beneath it, a letter written in a hand I'd never seen. He spoke your name before he closed his eyes. That was all it said, and yet it was enough to unravel me. I kept that box hidden under my bed for decades, afraid that if I opened it again, the grief would drown me anew. Life moved on, as people say it must, though I never really did. I married a kind man named Walter, not out of love but out of exhaustion from waiting for someone who would never return. Walter was gentle, patient, and he gave me a home that was safe if not full. We had one son, Michael, and though I loved him more than life itself, I sometimes caught myself staring at him and seeing Samuel's eyes. Walter passed away quietly in his sleep when Michael was only 15, leaving me to raise a boy who looked too much like his father for me to ever forget. Michael grew restless, just like the men before him. And when he turned 18, he left home saying he needed to see the world before it was too late. I begged him not to go, but he smiled that same stubborn smile, and told me I'd taught him to be brave. He wrote letters for a while, short ones about cities and oceans, about people who didn't know sorrow the way we did, but then, one day, they stopped. I tried to be strong. I told myself he was fine, that maybe he was busy building a life, but years passed, and silence became my answer again. I started talking to the willow tree again, the way I did as a girl, asking it if the world had a heart at all. When the pain became too heavy, I would sit by the river and imagine Samuel walking toward me through the mist, holding my son's hand, smiling, saying they were both all right now. The neighbors called me the lonely widow, though they never really knew the story behind my loneliness. Sometimes children from the town would come by to sell cookies or flowers, and I would buy them all just to hear their voices, to feel for a moment that my house was alive again. The seasons changed, and with every passing year, the walls seemed to close in, not from malice, but from memory. Photographs lined the shelves, faces I loved, faces I lost, all frozen in time while I kept aging. My hair turned white, my hands grew frail, but my heart remained crowded with ghosts. Last winter, I fell ill, the kind of sickness that doesn't scare you because you know it's simply time catching up. The doctor visits, the pills, the hushed voices, they all blurred together. I remember one night, lying in bed, the snow falling softly outside, and I thought I heard Henry's laughter again, faint but familiar, followed by Samuel's voice saying, "It's almost time." I didn't know if it was memory or mercy, but I smiled and whispered back, "I'm ready." When morning came, the world was covered in white, pure, untouched, forgiving. I sat by the window, holding that old photograph of me and Samuel, the edges now almost gone, and for the first time in decades I felt peace. I realized life had never been about avoiding pain. It was about loving deeply enough that even pain felt sacred. Every loss, every tear, every lonely evening had been proof that I had lived, that I had loved. The wind blew through the trees, and I could swear I saw the willow outside bending gently, as if bowing in farewell. I thought of Mama's hymns, of Papa's stories, of Henry's laughter, of Samuel's promise, of Michael's smile. All the threads that made me who I was. I whispered thank you into the quiet, because after a lifetime of waiting, I finally understood that love never truly leaves. It changes shape, becomes wind, sunlight, a memory carried in the soul. And as the day turned to dusk, I felt my eyes grow heavy, my breath softening. In that moment, I wasn't the lonely widow anymore. I was the girl beneath the willow, Samuel's hand in mine, the river singing beside us, and the world once again full of color.